Welcome to our 5-minute Bible study today. We're, of course, continuing our study of the book of Revelation. And today, we want to begin looking at the 7 letters to the 7 churches. Now, if you look at the book of Revelation, one of the first things you notice is that there are segments of the book, there are sections. The first section is chapter 1, which we've looked at the last few days, which is the introduction. We meet John, the apostle who received this vision of Jesus. And we see something of how he saw Christ in his transcendent glory. And then we're ready for the second section of the book, which is chapters 2 and 3. And in these 2 chapters, we find 7 letters that Jesus sent to 7 churches. These are called the 7 churches of Asia Minor, which is where they were located, what is today Western Turkey. These churches are the original recipients of this vision of Jesus. But before they receive the details of the vision John saw, he has a few personal words that Jesus wants to address to them. And so we find 7 short letters to each of the churches in which Jesus has something to say. Now, this is fascinating. We've already seen in the vision that Jesus walks among the lampstands. That is, he walks among his churches. And he wants his churches to hear his word and to know his voice and to receive his instruction for them. So right at the very beginning of Revelation, even before we get into all the details of the vision, we have these personal words of Jesus to these churches, and they're fascinating. Now, these churches are all actual churches that existed in the first century. If you travel through this area of Western Minor on the main road, you would come to all 7 of these cities or villages or towns. And each one of them has a vibrant and a vital Christian church. Now, these churches have been here for a while now. You might recall when we began our study a few days ago, we mentioned that the book of Revelation was probably written around the 90s AD. These churches were established in the 50s AD. So all of these churches are about 40 years old. They're all, in essence, second generation churches. They're large churches, vital congregations, but the Lord has some things he wants to say to them. Now, as you look through the 7 letters, you'll notice there are some similarities in structure. All of the letters are addressed to the angel of the church. You remember that vision? Jesus held the 7 stars in his hand, the 7 angels of the churches. So the letters go to the angels. I think that's meant to tell us that the church is always supernaturally endowed. There's always supernatural power in the midst of the church. And so the letters kind of reflect that. They are all written to the angel of that church. Also, all of the letters are from Jesus, and he identifies himself to each church by something that was in the vision of John chapter 1. So part of the vision resurfaces in how Jesus identifies himself to the churches. For example, in the letter of Ephesus, Jesus says, "These are the words of him who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, and he who walks among the 7 gold lampstands." John had seen that in the vision, and now it comes out in the letter. In the second letter, the letter to Smyrna, Jesus says, "These are the words of him who is the first and the last, who died and came to life again." We saw that in the first vision, that Jesus was the one who died for us and then was raised from the grave. In the third letter, he says, "These are the words of him who has the sharp, double-edged sword." We saw in the vision of John chapter 1, this sharp, double-edged sword, which is the word of God, coming forth from the mouth of Jesus. Now it's identified in this letter. So each of the letters begins with an identifying mark of Jesus tied to that vision John saw in chapter 1. Then, in each of the letters, Jesus has something positive to say about the church. He has a word of commendation. The first thing he says to the church is, "This is what you are doing well. Congratulations. Keep it up. You're doing a good work." So he has this word of positive commendation. And then it is followed by a word of correction. Jesus says, "This is an area in which you need to work on. You may have fallen just a little bit short here, so let me give you a word of correction." So the word is from Jesus. First, a word of commendation. "This is what you're doing well." And then a word of correction. "This is where you need to work a little bit." And then there's a word of imploring or a word of encouragement saying, Listen carefully to what I have to say. Whoever has ears, let him hear what the Spirit is saying. So we're encouraged to listen carefully to the word of Jesus. And then each of the letters concludes with a promise. This is what you will receive if you heed the word of Jesus. Also, this is what might happen if you do not heed the word of Jesus. So, for instance, to the Ephesians, Jesus says, to the one who's victorious, I will give the right to eat from the tree of life. So there's that word of promise if you follow the word of the Lord. So in each of these letters, it's from Jesus. It's to the angel of the church. He commends the church. He corrects the church. He implores the church to hear. And then he gives a word of promise. If you will hear me, this is what I will do for you. Let's look very quickly at a little bit of the letter of Ephesians. A couple of things Jesus says to them. First, he tells them, you are a hard-working church. You're a hard-working church. I know your deeds. I know your hard work. I know your perseverance. I know you have endured hardship. You've not grown weary. Now, that's a great word. This is a church that holds fast to the truth of the gospel. They've not given up. They've not quit. They've not wearied. They hold fast. That is a wonderful commendation. Oh, we would love to hear Jesus say that about our church. You're doing well. You're holding fast. Keep it up. But there's also a word of correction to the Ephesians. He said, you have forsaken your first love. You have forsaken your first love. I think what that means is he's saying to the church, though you've done well, you're not as passionate about me as you used to be. Oh, you used to be so in love with me. And now, though you still do the right things, and you don't grow weary in doing them, yet the passion is gone. Oh, I want you to revive your heart and revive your spirit. Love me as you used to. Love me as you did at the first. So in these words of Ephesians, we need to take heart and also take warning. We need to be like the Ephesians. Don't grow weary in doing good. Hold fast to the gospel. Persevere. They did that. But also, we need to keep our passion. We need to keep in love with Jesus. That's the most important thing. Don't forsake your first love. Stay in love with Jesus. We're going to conclude with that word today. Like the Ephesians, let us be hard workers. Let us stay faithful and true to the gospel. Let us persevere. But also, let us always be passionate about Jesus. Let us stay in love with Jesus Christ. If we'll do that, he promises, as he promised the Ephesians, that I will give you the right to eat from the tree of life. Stay in love with Jesus. Tomorrow we'll start looking at the other letters, but I hope you have a great day, and I hope you know the blessing of God throughout this day. We'll see you next time.